Hi everyone, thank you for coming today. My name is Adam Kalitska, and I'm here today to talk to you about how we can grow our business by thinking small. So what I'm going to talk about today, we're first going to talk about the decline in the large gas turbine market. We're going to talk about the change in the energy landscape and opportunities for us to grow. And then we're going to talk about how we can optimize our sales force to take advantage of these opportunities. So the first, I'm sure it's no secret to all of you that are in tune with the industry, the large gas turbine market has been in steady decline over the past 3 years. It's experienced a 50% decline. The unfortunate part here is that this was our bread and butter business. We own 40% of the market share, but with this decline in the industry and the long-term output not looking great, we really need to find a new business field that we can move into and capture some opportunities. So why is the gas turbine market really not doing as healthy as it was before? Well, really, the answer is pretty simple. There's been a lot of renewables entering the market. There's been a lot of energy efficiencies that people are taking advantage of. People are switching and looking into battery storage. All this is putting pressure on large power plants that are typically owned by utilities, and it's really forcing them to become more decentralized. So these gas plants that people were typically buying in the past, they're now moving, looking for something smaller that can spread throughout their system and handle these fluctuations in load from the renewable energy system. So when we look at the future of the small gas turbine market, it was really small in the past, and we really didn't have that good of a market share because we weren't really placing that much focus on it. But when we look towards the future, out to 2030, this market's going to grow by 450%. So this is a huge opportunity where we can take advantage. We just need to position ourselves correctly, and we need to take advantage of the opportunity. So why has our market share been, not as ideal as it could be? Well, the answer is simple. These customers that buy these small gas turbines, they're not your traditional utilities. They're pulp and paper plants, they're data centers, they're universities, they're chemical plants. These are not our core customer base that our sales people focus on regularly. Our sales structure focuses on long-term relationships, and when you're going to start talking to a university or a hospital, it's really a different conversation that our people aren't used to doing. And if they're not spending the right amount of time on it, they're not going to be able to be successful. So getting into that, our current sales structure, we have over 100 account reps located throughout the United States. They focus 85% of their time on utility accounts and 15% of this on growing business development, talking to new customers. The problem is, like I said before, they're not spending enough time on these new customers, and they really don't need to focus, or we don't want to take away their focus from the utilities, because they're still buying a lot of equipment. They're buying wind turbines, which we sell. They're buying energy management systems. All that stuff is good, and we want to continue doing what we're doing there. We just need to focus on these small gas turbines a little bit differently. So what I'm suggesting and what I'm proposing to you today is that we create 6 new positions for business development people focused specifically on small gas turbines. This will allow them to take 100% of their time on business development. They can build these relationships at these non-traditional customers and give us the focus that we need to be successful. I propose that we don't hire new people. We take people from our existing sales force, those people that are excited about the opportunity, looking for a challenge, and really want to contribute to the business. So that being said, I think if we have a dedicated approach, we have people covering the right accounts in the right places, and we give them time to develop these relationships, we're going to improve our market share. We're going to be able to take advantage of this growing industry and this growing application, and we're going to be successful and be able to grow our business. So with your approval, I'd like to institute this and get things moving to make this a reality. Thank you. You guys have any questions?
You were just under 4 minutes, so you could probably...
Yeah, but you definitely can speak slower.
Yeah, you can pull out the gas a little there, buddy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let on that gas turbine.
Ramping up to full load.
Yeah, I go pretty fast.
We all have that problem. It's a personal problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Practice. It's on.
All right, next is Irina.
Practice it.
It's not about how long it is, but how good it is. There's that artist.
Who is this artist?
You.
Oh,
Pretty
sorry,
powerful.
You
Click
click
this
the
play
play
setting.
where?
Slip right. No, right
Play
there.
setting?
Yeah. That's
It's
swap.
having a stroke watching this mouse.
Swap.
Swap.
Okay, thanks. How to engage famous artists artists and get a top international ranking for our public art projects. I asked this question several internationally recognized artists, and here is what they say. Well, one from Ukraine believes that technique is not that important but marketing. In this presentation, I would like to explore technical skills, social media, artistic freedom, and global street art promotion. Let's begin with the technique. Is it important? Not always. Black Lorette and Banksy became really famous using just simple stencil technique. Banksy's artworks are sold for over 1 million at private auctions, including murals. Keith McLean is regarded as a pioneer of photorealistic street art movement, and this style was developed in 2000. Today, many other artists use even better technique. However, Keith McLean remains to be one of the most invited artists in the world. Why? Because curators just don't know better options. Greek artist Ina says, to make a promotion for a project, we should create something catchy. Quality is for a few, those who are not interested in the amount of likes and followers. Indeed, nowadays, the amount of followers on social media became an important feature when selecting an artist or convincing sponsors. But does it always reflect artistic excellence? Who has more followers, do you think? The artist on the left or on the right?
Left.
Stuzin is considered to be godfather of graffiti. He began spray painting trains in New York when at the age of 11. He is one of the best known graffiti artists in the world. And the second artist is just a great muralist with amazing technique. How about 4,000 followers? This Greek artist has experience in both graffiti and as an iconographer. The value of his art is exceptional because this is the first time when a Byzantine monumental style meets contemporary art forms such as street art. If you feel pity for figures, don't worry. Followers are difficult to engage but easy and affordable to buy. You can find plenty of good deals on the internet. What naturally promotes project? Does artistic freedom make any influence? One of the most interesting projects I had an opportunity to co-organize was in Chernobyl. We know about the disaster that happened in 1986. The nuclear power plant in Chernobyl exploded, releasing 400 times more radioactive matter than bombing of Hiroshima. We wanted to acknowledge the 30th anniversary of the worst nuclear disaster by creating a painting from a photograph taken within hours after the explosion. Another meaningful mural we created right next to the active war zone in Ukraine. We selected a building that has signs from the bullets and depicted a portrait of a local teacher to show that on both sides of the conflicts, people still remain and live relatively ordinary life. These two murals attracted a lot of attention throughout the world and were named as some of the most meaningful murals of the year by recognized street art blogs. After that, many other artists, famous artists, asked us about an opportunity to paint in those areas because it is cool and because they have artistic freedom. How can we find the right artist for our projects? Here's an example of our standard call to artists. I would like you to focus on these three words: interactive, 3D, and historic. Here is an example of 3D mural that we recently created in Gainesville. 3D effects literally changed the architecture. This is an interactive mural. People see different effects when viewed through red or blue filters. One of the figures disappears. And this is an example of a historic mural. As you can see, all three different styles can be associated with one sample call to artists, but none of these artists would apply to our call. Why? Because it is unclear, unattractive, time-consuming, and circulated locally. Do you want our murals to be listed as top of the month or best of the year? I recommend our call to artists to concentrate on something specific and target artists that specialize on this thing. Consider hiring a curator to promote the our calls to the right media outlets. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me.
So you had like 45 seconds left, so.
Yeah, I would definitely use them.
So you want to read it?
There's a great artist in Bogota who does murals.
So,
In Bogota, Colombia, there's an artist, I can't remember his name, but he's got work all over, and it is amazing. Yeah, it's cool stuff.
here.
Some of the interesting ones that I saw were in Ireland, in Northern Ireland, where you could see the whole murals. And not that they were extremely beautiful murals, but some of them were pretty scary. So it's somebody like holding a gun, and whichever way you walk, the gun's following you.
Yeah.
But then on top of that, they're adding new paintings that are like more kid friendly.
Ready?
1 second.
We got a timing.
Did you just copy his presentation?
Yeah, this is exactly the same.
Restricted too.
Guys, we're in a shrinking market. When you think about, right now we need big turbines. We need small turbines.
Turbines, not turbines.
Okay, are you ready?
Oh yeah, right.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name is Michael Kesey, and I'm here today to talk to you about Pacific Gas and Electric resource allocation. Now, more specifically, I'm here to talk about dedicating a third account manager to PG&E. And the reasons for this are threefold. Number one, there's a large time investment needed. There's a qualified suppliers list that takes many man-hours to break through, and it requires additional account managers. Two, there's a high potential return. Right now it's kind of the perfect storm at PG&E because they have ambitious energy transition goals, they have high solar penetration, and they have a bunch of activity going on due to wildfire mitigation. And third, it's the perfect timing because recently there's been newly established relationships and recent big project wins that make it the perfect time to double down on those wins and relationships. So quickly, just a little bit of context on the account. PG&E is the fourth largest utility in the United States, but if you compare our historical order intake to other top accounts, we floundered. Now, we've made recent progress in this account. You can see that just in the last year alone, we've had a 1,000% increase over our traditional order entry, and this came 2 years after adding a second account manager to support the account. But you can see that the account is at risk without future support, and I'm going to explain why. So here's the challenges going on with PG&E. Number one, there's entrenched competition. This is an historical house account for ABB who dedicates 5 full-time equivalent salespeople to the account. We have 2. This is the equivalent of showing up to a football game at halftime with only half of your offensive line. So we need to make up for past times. With the size and complexity, PG&E has over 20,000 employees, and they're unusually siloed. Different groups don't talk to each other compared to most utilities, so it requires additional account management time. And fourth, and most importantly, PG&E has an extensive, exhaustive qualification process for new products being approved. And this is second only to NASA. And as you can see on the bottom graph, what typically takes a utility less than a year to review and add a new product to get qualified, it takes PG&E over 4 years. So this next slide I show only to show the opportunity. This is a list of every single product type that Siemens sells to utilities, and it shows which ones were approved and not approved for. And as you can see, over 90% were not approved for. But that can change. The way I think of this is that this account is like a mountain with gold in the middle. And yeah, you need man hours to drill through the mountain, but once you create the tunnel, all you need is a few guys to go walk in and pull the gold out. So to bring it all together in terms of the opportunity, we have a large territory with big repetitive orders, we have the perfect storm of market drivers, and once we're past the barrier of the qualified suppliers list, it puts distance between us and other competitors that are not qualified yet. So with this combination, we can grow this account into a $40 million per year account easily, but only if we dedicate a third account manager, PG&E, to manage the qualification process, build more champion relationships, maintain momentum, and protect the forecast. Thank you.
2 minutes left.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Nice.
So you wanna go out and destroy mountains, huh?
Yeah.
Sounds like energy
Good
companies.
good use of analogy.
We might as well,
Yeah.
go after this. It's like 3 baby seals. Just get a club and wear them.
I quite this to 3 helpless baby seals that are just
Slaying their weight
Slaying
in these swats.
It looks like half your line at one time.
You're probably up.
2 full people or so.
Next is Matt.
That's alphabet for you.
So you want to move to California, huh?
Say what?
So you want to move to California, huh?
So I nominate myself.
Where in California would it be?
San Francisco.
They don't pay you.
Okay, you nothing.
Hello everyone, my name is Matthew King. I'm a clinical specialist and I work for Medtronic. The whole reason we're here today is to try and reduce our clinic workflow. So our current situation that we have in most of our clinics, as a rep I go into a clinic, I see that I have roughly 50 to 75 patients that I need to check in a 3 to 4 hour time period. This is a large amount of checks in a very short amount of time, and these checks range from all types of devices, whether it's pacemakers, ICDs, or implantable loop recorders. And as you can see next to each one, those are typically how long it takes in between each check for the patient to come back into the office for me to check them. So you have full clinics, we have different types of devices. Other issues that we have are when issues arise on my end as I'm checking a device, I have to bring it to the attention of the physician. When this occurs, it slows down the physician's work time, and it's an unnecessary thing that I have to do, but it needs to be done. We also have emergency add-on checks that sometimes come in for non-device check days, so we have to bring a rep in from the field who's not scheduled to come into the office on that particular day. Lots of issues here. So the old school way, like I mentioned, the patient drives into the office. They typically have to wait between 30 and 45 minutes to have their device checked. Once they're called back, it takes roughly 5 minutes to do the check. After the check is complete, the patient pays their copay, they leave the office, and then I hand deliver the report to the doctor for him to verify and see. The new school way that we're trying to implement is through our CareLink system. What ends up happening is patients will submit their report through the CareLink home monitoring system. Those reports are sent directly into the doctor's office for the doctor to see. The doctor checks it off, the patient pays the copay, it's quick and easy, and the patient never even has to come into the office. So you're probably asking, what is CareLink? CareLink is a system that Medtronic has created to try and let the physicians be able to communicate with the patients and with their devices via a monitoring system. It is a system that Medtronic takes care of. When the patients send in the reports are sent directly into Medtronic, and we disperse them to the proper clinics and the proper physicians for them to see. We have 2 different types of home monitoring systems. The first one is a Bluetooth compatible device. It actually is an app-based device, works directly with any type of smartphone, whether it's Android or iPhone. Patients are able to send in reports from anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world. If they're traveling, going on vacation, that's not a problem. If they're having issues or they're scheduled to send in a report, they can do it immediately, and that's sent directly to the doctor's office. If patients don't have smartphones, which a lot of times our older patients do not, they're not technologically savvy, we have another type of device that you can see up in the top left. The great thing about this is all you need for this is power. It actually has a cell phone built inside of it. We always say anywhere a cell phone works, this also works. We have patients keep this next to their bedside table. If they're scheduled to send in a report, they push one button, which is the gray button right in the center, and actually pictures on the screen show up telling the patient exactly what they need to do. It's a very easy procedure. As long as they have power and can remember to push a button, they can send their report into the doctor's office at any time. These home monitoring systems are delivered at time of implant. So as soon as we implant a brand new device in the patient, we give them a home monitoring system. We register this monitoring system with the patient at that time, so only their device communicates with their monitoring system, and their monitoring system only communicates with their device. We educate the patient the next day after the implant, and our devices, our monitoring systems are compatible with every device that we allow. That we implant. Common questions and concerns that arise on a regular basis. Doctors are concerned that they're going to lose interactions with their patients. That's not going to happen. They're actually still able to see the same exact information that they would have before, and the doctors are able to still schedule their normal in-office checks to be able to communicate with their patients on a regular basis. Doctors are worried about losing their reports. You know, it's out in the ethos, so they think it's gone forever, but it's not. All you have to do is look up the system, look up the name. You can see every report that the patient's ever sent in. Very easy to access. How will patients know when to send reports? Medtronic and CareLink actually send patients a schedule as to how often they need to send in these transmissions. Doctors are worried that patients are not technologically advanced. Our devices are very easy to use. If you can follow pictures, you can send in reports. It's that simple. And the big thing that no one wants to talk about is physicians are worried that this is going to take money out of their pocket. This will not. The report that they're sending from their home is the same exact information that we get from the patient when they come in and we check their device in person. The physicians are still receiving the same report. The insurance company recognizes that, and they're still reimbursed, and the copay is paid the same way like a normal in-office device check would be done. Benefits that we have, patients have peace of mind. If there's ever an issue, if they have a fall or anything like that, they're concerned about their leads, they're concerned about their devices, they can send a report at any time. Doesn't matter when. That way, the doctor's office has the report immediately, and they're able to see what's going on at a moment's notice. It eliminates interruptions. There's no more me having to talk to physicians to let them know that there's an issue with the device, and they're able to go on about their clinics. Needs and physicians of patients are met without ever having to leave home. It actually increases revenue for physicians. You know, you don't even have to come to the office anymore. Patients are still able to see exactly what's going on, and support is readily available from Medtronic at a moment's notice. Like I said, everything that we see in the office is exactly what's transmitted to the doctor's office. Everything that we see in the doctor's office, whether it's ventricular arrhythmias, atrial arrhythmias, we can still pass that information along for doctors to bill. Desired outcome, patients are seen in the office once a year. Same number of checks are transmitted from the patients throughout the year. So doctors are able to see exactly what's going on with the device. We reduce weekly clinics to monthly clinics. Monthly to quarterly and sporadic checks are eliminated. We increase revenue for physicians, which leads to happy patients and happy doctors. Thank you.
This fucking muffin. Am I not going now? Closed.
Alright, next is Paul.
What happened to the alphabet? No.
Exit.
Yeah, just slam the keyboard.
So strong.
Okay, that was the wrong presentation.
For some reason, you're
Alright.
reminding me of copy my
Wrong
presentation. Your thing reminded me of like a pizza shop. It looked like a
Pizza tracker.
Yeah, exactly.
Alright, look like that.
Yeah, looked like exactly. Hey,
There you go.
people might like that.
I do like pizza.
Especially when we're talking about it.
Today.
There's some things in my presentation
that are confidential, so they've been blacked out. So if you see some of that, that's why. I'm going to be presenting to an audience in animal education on how to audit educators at Disney World. So it's time at our company to make our audits smart. We need to be able to track them instead of just doing random audits, and we also be able to eliminate the amount of emails we receive as leaders. Some audit history of our company, how it used to work. And it was developed in 2009 where we would use leadership and business partners to audit our educators. There was no tiered system, it was random auditing, and there was no tracking of what we did, and there was sporadic feedback. The current state of educator audits, we have a 3-tiered system with an independent audit review. Tier 1 is local leadership. Feedback is given directly from the leader, but there is no standard tracking method to this. The leader just does the audit and tells the cast member if they did well or poorly. Tier 2, leadership travels to a different park. This way, the cast member may not know the leader, a little less obvious, and feedback again is provided by the local leader. However, we do not have the workload to support this kind of audit. Business partners in Tier 3. Again, this is where business partners will bring in to audit our educators. Again, it's not supported by the workload. We can't demand our business partners to do our work for us, and they are not a trained auditor. And the independent audit conducted by internal review will come by. This is our best audit right now. It is independent. The casts aren't aware they're being audited. However, there's a lack of frequency and a lack of shift coverage that we need to cover. How are we going to change this? First, we're going to strengthen our leadership audits. Next, we're going to increase the frequency of our independent audit review, and we're just going to eliminate Tier 2, Tier 3 to simplify our audit process. How are we going to strengthen these audits? We're going to use Smartsheet. Smartsheet is an improved IT app through Disney. Anyone with Disney can fill out a form on Smartsheet at no cost, and you only need one administrator to create these forms and to track the audits. Here's how the form looks. Before we had complicated forms, about 10 clicks to get to. Now our leaders will only have 1 click to get to these simple forms to fill out that can be created with drop downs, icons, bullets, whatever you desire, whatever you want on that form can be created. From those forms, the data gets put into the system, and we are able to create dashboards for our leadership and our senior leadership team. So as opposed to you as being a senior leader getting 500 emails from all across the park, you are able to hit one button on your phone and get a live feed of what's going on in your park. Not only will this program help show what's going on with our audit process, but it will also show how many audits a leader is doing. Is a leader doing 500 audits with no fails, or is a leader doing 100 audits with 20 fails? If that's happening, something's going on where a leader should at least have 1 fail within 500 audits. And we're also able to track other information such as homerooms we do with our cast members or outreach programs with other lines of business. How can we access this? Again, the old program had poor accessibility. This, you can have icons put on your phone, you can have shortcuts put on your computer, and you can have bookmarks added to your Internet Explorer tab. Why not? Too techy. A lot of our casts aren't tech friendly. So what they have said about this as a pilot program we have done at Animal Kingdom is it's easy to use, and I'm able to access it on larger screens if you can't see on your phone. When confused, the technology guided me through it, and it will not let me to submit without any other information. Change is tough, right? This program allows seamless data input, and you can access it anywhere, again with that 1 click, which is key to get someone to actually fill out a form. So the future, where can we take this? Live action plan tracking. Any event that we do, we can have an action plan, and a senior leader or someone off property will be able to see who's assigned a task, if they've completed it, if it's in progress, live, and so they won't have to call and bug the leader on duty trying to deal with the event. Cast members will be able to input the data, so you can have a coordinator fill out the data, again, taking away from leadership if leadership is tied up on something else. It's effortless tracking, so we can track now how a leader performs, how our cast performs with ease, and getting our year-end reviews a much simpler process. And it's a one-stop shop for seniors and executives. No longer, again, do you have to receive all those emails. You can just click, see what's going on in your park, see how our audits and casts are performing, and see how your leaders are performing. So let's make audits smart sheet, and if you can dream it, we can create it with this technology. Thank you.
Yeah, like 20 seconds left.
Blew my mind.
I like the track.
Thanks. I was worried, I presented this to the senior leadership, and I was like, anyone have an issue with the pictures on the side or anything? And they're like, no, we thought it was great. So it's just like a little joke for us millennials that no one else will get.
Stephanie?
Also, I don't even think you need to explain the blacked out portions, because you really, if you don't know anything about it,
You can't really-
you can't tell what's going on. No, I'm not being,
Yeah.
For my knowledge, like what's the hierarchy? Is it cast member, then leader, then whatever, or how does that work?
Yeah,
Not that it matters, because your presentation, like, obviously.
it's
the
going
audience
to be
is-
focused to, yeah. Cast members are frontline cast members. Everyone's a cast member, but when we talk, and I had to change wording in this again for confidentiality.
Yeah.
Where
I
does
can't
Cinderella
believe
rank?
that. If you can figure out how to move the mouse.
she's Mickey Mouse's secretary.
Okay, gotcha. His assistant.
Which is a good thing, though.
And then it goes to leadership, and then seniors, and then executives.
Yeah, Cinderella complained last year about the Me Too movement and what Mickey did to her. So
It was
it's,
Within the different
I wonder
parts.
what is the most coveted?
Kizzy, what did you do to get the mouse to work?
I just
Cinderella
like,
problem.
yeah, I did that, yeah. There you go.
janitor. Street sweeper.
So we're just auditing everybody all the time? Think stop it.
You never know when you're being audited. Hey, by the way, Joey, one of your slides said too techie, but that's the wrong two, my dog.
Yeah, thank you.
It's TW, dumbass.
TWO.
You know, that was
Going too technical.
legal. Oh, we deleted it, that's what we did. I'll fix that.
So just a little background, I work with the Institutional Animal Care and Use Committee at UF, and I'm the EH&S consultant, so I review all of the animal protocols for staff safety issues. So this presentation is going to focus on that aspect of my job. But, so I'm going to use a lot of acronyms. So IACUC is Institutional Animal Care and Use Committee. ACS is Animal Care Services, and EHS is Environmental Health and Safety. Hi everyone, thank you for coming. Today we're going to discuss increasing the efficiency of our EH&S review for the audit, and by creating chemical containment levels for animal research. So UF is in a unique situation in that we have world-renowned faculty with a diverse set of research. We have a lot of faculty that are recruited because they bring innovative and cutting-edge ideas to the university. With these ideas, you have a unique landscape to navigate of a diverse set of hazards, especially when it comes to animal research. So EH&S's role in facilitating animal research at UF is to aid in the spirit of discovery by providing a safe work environment for staff, students, and faculty. So today we're going to go over more in depth of what EH&S's role is in the animal review process, We're going to go over our current risk assessment methods, and then also some suggestions for changing our review process. And then finally, we're going to go over some current work that's being done to improve this process and what those benefits to the university will be. So how often is IACUC or EH&S consulted during the IACUC review process? Over the past 3 years, there's been a large increase in the number of requests for EH&S review. As you can see, it's basically doubled in 2 years. And then when we look at the number of active research protocols at UF, a majority of those include hazards. These hazards consist of biological hazards, chemical hazards, radiation, and then also wildlife research. EH&S is primarily driven by regulators. And so when we look at animal research, what is the regulatory guidance given for when it comes to animal research? First, there's the guide for the care and use of laboratory animals. This basically, when it comes to staff safety, indicates that you should have a plan to protect staff. There should be some occupational health assessments, and that hazards should be identified, and that staff should be protected from them. What it doesn't include is how to make that happen. When we look at biological agents used in animals, you have the BMBL, which provides guidance on how to handle infectious agents. And then you also have the NIH guidelines that provide guidance for recombinant DNA in animals. But what about chemicals? There's actually no regulatory guidelines for chemicals once they are put into animals. The only guidelines that we have are from the EPA on how to handle the waste. But other than that, there's no guidance. So what is our current process for reviewing chemicals in animals? First, we look at each IACUC protocol on a case-by-case basis. We look at the route of administration, the animal model being used, as well as the dose and concentration of the drug being administered. When we're reviewing these, there might be 1 or 2 staff in our department who are reviewing these IACUC protocols. And when you have 2 sets of eyes, you have 2 different opinions on how hazardous or how things should be handled. And so that creates some inconsistencies between our reviewers. And again, there's no regulatory guidance. So when you're going to look for information, you're looking at the SDS sheets, you're looking at what other institutions are doing, and making your best judgment call. So how do we address this issue for a large and diverse research institution? We look at recently published articles that go over chemical containment levels, and these chemical containment levels go over the PPE needed, how to dispose of the waste, and then the engineering controls required as you move up, and it's similar to the biological safety levels. And so what steps are required to implement these changes? First, we need to define the chemical containment levels that we're going to use at the university. We need to implement a process of change that is backed by not only the IACUC, ACS, and AHS, as well as the Office of Research. And then we need to provide a clear and consistent message to our faculty on how they need to handle these chemical hazards. So when we're talking about chemical hazards, we're looking at everything that happens after administration. And in that guidance, we need to provide minimum engineering controls, PPE, administrative controls, waste disposal, and transportation between facilities on campus. EH&S is currently working with our animal care services to look at all of the available engineering controls on campus. We're looking at cage numbers, so how many cages contain chemical hazards, and what are the hazard types. So chemical containment levels, one of the issues is when you're implementing such a broad program, how do you account for differences between species? We'll design the chemical containment levels so that they primarily focus on rodent research. Any other species will be looked at on a case-by-case basis, and then we'll develop SOP templates that provide EH&S the information from PIs to perform a thorough risk assessment. We'll also use our new Gator Tracks tool to look at the hazards that are currently present in the labs. This will improve the review process in that it'll create institutional standards We will create institutional SOPs and SOP templates. It'll also create consistency, and then for PIs, one of the biggest things that it'll create transparency. So if they know what our expectations are, they'll know how much it costs to do animal research at UF. And then overall, it'll lead to increased efficiency in the review. So if we want to move to a top 5 institution, we need more streamlined processes and new methods to address how we review animal research. Thank you.
You're over by like 30 seconds. And Paul?
Nice visual.
What?
Thank you.
No, I don't know, I'm sure there's something in there that I didn't catch.
Yeah.
Is there one on yours too?
No, not this. It's absolutely.
It's hard to know.
What's wrong?
Just me. All right, so I wanted to say thank you for your time. I'll try not to take up too much of your afternoon, but what I wanted to discuss is the employee pool that we currently have at the Shands Vista Psych Hospital. So this is our current employee pool setup. We have full 8-time employees at the intake department, 3 part-time employees, and then we also have 6 slots for PRN employees with only 3 of them filled. So the way I wanted to kind of do this is a little bit like a Quentin Tarantino movie where I show you a little bit of the end and then I kind of wrap around throughout the presentation to get to that. So the message I want you to keep in mind is that the PRNs should be PR out. So this is our agenda for today. I'll continue discussing some of the observations of the employee pool. I'll discuss about how our current employee pool affects our hospital safety, and I'll also discuss how it affects our resources. I'll make a suggestion to the proposal I wanted to make, and then we'll go into a quick summary. So in 2018, we hired 8 total PRNs. 6 PRNs resigned before the end of the year, which means that we only retained 25% of our total hires. So further observations, this is a very highly sought out department to work in terms of mental health, yet we have the absolute highest turnover, especially among our PRN employees, which is a little bit of an inconsistency. This is possibly due to the unclear roles of the PRN employees. PRN employees are often expected to fill in shifts that are, someone called out or they're missing. And these PRN employees are often seeking regular work, yet they have limited opportunities because of the current setup of our full-time and part-time employees, which results in a carousel of hiring employees, then resigning, hiring new employees, resigning. And this unfortunately has resulted in a loss of extremely talented people in our department simply because the setup was not allowing them for them to get the hours that they were seeking. So regarding safety, intake is the first contact with the patient, so this is our opportunity to make our best impression with the patients, but it's also the first point of contact that we have with the patient in general. So it is our job to communicate to the rest of the hospital what we're observing with the patient. And unfortunately, in a very highly detail-oriented position, newer employees feel uncomfortable with the pressures of all the details that have to be accomplished during this process, and this results in poor communication. Poor communication means that patients are sometimes put in unsafe situations and staff is put in unsafe situations. We have had situations in which a nurse walked into a room with an actively psychotic and aggressive person because our PRN employee failed to mention that to them, which could have been a disastrous situation. Further, PRN employees are focusing on the details of the job and they are failing to secure contraband from the patients. We've had several patients who have mentioned that they are suicidal and they are sitting in the assessment room with a belt around their waist, which as we know can be used to strangle yourself. As our PRN employees are trying to manage all the details and tasks because of their lack of experience, they are unable to check on the patient every 5 minutes as we're supposed to. Now regarding our resources, I've continued to reflect that this is a very highly detailed oriented position with a very steep learning curve. This slows down our regular employees because they have to slow down and instruct our newer employees what the process is, what the appropriate safety precautions are. And this ultimately ends up being a time and money investment for our company. PRNs are paid their hourly wage, and if we have 75% of employees leaving, this is a loss more often than not. So I wanted to go back to this slide and particularly zoom in on the very last point where we retain 25% of our hires. I wanted to use this little formula to illustrate the loss that we're having within the department. So the average time for a PRN employee to get trained is about 3 to 6 months, to the point where they're self-sufficient and don't really need supervision. They are paid their hourly wage, and it also reduces the efficiency of the overall department because our regular employees have to slow down to help them and ensure that they're following all our safety precautions as well. So if we profit 25% at a time, that also means that with this particular formula, we are losing 75% at a time as we are investing in these PRN employees and we are not reaping any of the benefit. So again, back to our current employee pool, the proposal that I wanted to make is that we stop hiring PRN employees, just leave the 3 that we have to support the missing shifts, and we increase the amount of part-time employees that we have within our department. And some of the benefits to this would be that all these employees would receive proper training, proper experience, and they would be regular employees, so they would have the adequate amount of experience and practice in the position. It would reduce the negative effect on regular employees because they don't have to slow down to instruct the new employees. It improves overall hospital safety, creates a strong team of our employees that are familiar and are able to work together. And most importantly, it reduces the loss of resources and improves the quality of care for our patients.
What's a PRN?
Um,
Stand for?
it's like some kind of Latin thing, but it's pretty much as needed. So like if someone calls out, they have to fill in, or if they're busy, they have to come and fill in. So it's just like a non-regular employee.
Gotcha.
So you're thinking it happened like on a regular schedule instead
Mhm.
of trying to, you just get called. So these people don't actually have a job, they're just called in to come work.
Right.
They have a normal job too, or what?
Yeah, most of the time. And the issue is that they just don't have the amount of practice that you need to stay consistent with it. Like it takes a while to pick up on the position, and if you only show up like once every week or 2 or twice every week or 2, you don't get enough
You
opportunity.
come once a week and then it sucks because you don't know what's going on.
Exactly.
You quit because it's hard.
I think
Like
try
they
to
check into the facility.
Empty the recycling bin.
try to delete the rest of it.
Yeah. That's everyone.
And the calculator app too.
Don't clean the trash. Yeah.
Just the calculator.
No, don't delete the calculator.
Oh.
It was a joke.